Hi everyone, Aiden here with etrailer. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Inno Roof Box 320. This is going to be a relatively low profile rooftop box to carry some extra stuff with you on your trips. Let's check it out. With this box you're going to get 9 cubic feet of storage space. Now 9 cubic feet doesn't really mean a whole lot to me. It's really going to depend on the shape of the box as well. With this one being a little bit longer, a little bit wider, and very short, it's going to potentially be limiting for our cargo. So I've got some stuff laid down on the ground right here, a couple different lengths of skis, a snowboard with its bindings, and some bags. I'm not super confident we'll be able to fit all of it, but let's see how much we can get into that box and still be able to close it. And when everything's all said and done, we were able to fit pretty much everything in the box except for this larger black duffel bag. That's just gonna have to go into the car. And that's kind of the limitation of this box, is that it is a lot shorter. So something that's a bit thicker, like that bag, isn't gonna fit in there super well. I think if it were just that bag in there, it would fit fine. But I prioritize the skis and the snowboards there, and there's not a whole lot of room on top of them to add more things. So the smaller bags fit well between the bindings, and I even fit a first aid box in between the snowboard bindings. It really just depends on what you're going to be carrying, what will fit the best in there, but just keep in mind that low profile if you're going to be putting some larger things in there. Something else I want to talk about, you saw it loaded up with stuff, but what are your actual internal dimensions? From front to back, you're going to be working with 66 1/8 of an inch of space. From side to side, it's going to be 26 inches of space. And then from top to bottom, it's going to be 9 inches of space. Depending on what you're putting in here, you could sneak a pair of skis in here that's a little bit longer than that if you put them diagonally, but keep in mind with that we're not going to be able to fit as much stuff around it. It's going to be most efficient to run our skis and our snowboards front to back and be able to kind of pack things squarely around it. So do keep that in mind. So for me on this box, the length and the height of it are really the most limiting factors as far as what you can fit. Some recommendations there would be probably the Inno Wedge 660. That's going to be a very similar form factor in terms of height here, but if you're using the box for skis and snowboards and you need a little extra length, that's going to be a good option because it's quite a bit longer. Now if you're using the box more for camping gear, duffel bags, maybe some suitcases, things like that, you're going to probably want to go for something taller. In that case, I'd maybe check out the Thule Pulse. It really just depends on what you're going to be carrying in the box, because each shape is going to lend itself better to certain cargo. Now, while that form factor can be limiting for what you can fit inside it, not everyone needs to fit everything in their rooftop box. If this works for the stuff that you have, that's great, because in addition to being a little bit shorter, that's going to give it really good clearance off your roof. Now, this is obviously going to depend a little bit depending on your vehicle, but from the top of the crossbar to the top of the box at its tallest point, it's only sticking up 10.5 inches. So if you're looking for something you can maybe leave on your roof and still potentially have clearance with things like your garage door, this is going to be a great option because that's not a lot of extra height that we're adding to the roof. Again, keep in mind that depending on your vehicle, that height may or may not work. The 4Runner that we have here is quite a bit taller, so I'd still be pretty wary pulling into garages or other low clearance situations. The keys provided with the box are going to be pretty central to operating it. That will control whether it's locked or unlocked. And in the unlocked position, we can push the button to release the latches and push the lid open. The hinges are pretty stiff, so if you're from the ground on a taller vehicle, it might be hard to push the lid fully open. Once the hinges kind of engage, it holds it open really well. In here, we can see all of our stuff. We can access the straps that are included with the box, so if we want to run those through our clamps and secure down our stuff to keep things from shifting around, we can do that. And then one thing I will point out whenever we're closing the box is right now I can't turn the key or remove it. So when I latch it down, I'll hear a click, the button here will pop out a little bit, and I can turn the key to lock it and remove the key. Now this is important because I don't have it fully latched down. The back of the box here isn't properly secured. Certain boxes will have that security feature where you cannot turn the key and remove it unless everything is properly latched. This is not the case with that, so if you are stuffing it pretty full, just take extra care to make sure everything is engaged properly and that the lid isn't going to be opening up anywhere when we're going down the road. The box can also be opened from both sides of the vehicle. So you've got that same set of locks and buttons on the other side. So let's say we're maybe somewhere where there's street parking and accessing this from the driver's side isn't the safest, we can access it from the passenger side. Or maybe we're in a parking lot where we've got more room on one side of the vehicle. Or with this being a wider box, it's actually really helpful for the initial setup because the clamps on this side are a lot easier to reach from this side. So during that initial setup and also being able to arrange our cargo from both sides, it's really helpful that it opens from both sides. Now with the box unloaded, let's take a look at the inside and see what we're working with here. The inside design, you can see we've got a couple of ridges here that's going to help keep our cargo elevated off the ground. So if we have anything that's dirty, maybe some sandy stuff or some stuff that has snow on it and that snow melts, all of that water and mess is going to drain down into these lowered parts and keep your cargo elevated away from it in the channels. So that's nice to know that that's kind of built into the box. The straps that we mentioned before run between the clamps. They can be loosened up or tightened down to help keep things in place. And what I like about them is that they just buckle into each other. So it's super easy to get them buckled in and then just pull it tight over your cargo to help keep things from shifting back and forth too much. As for the clamps, these are going to use Inno's memory mount. And what that really means, we'll see this a little bit more in the install section, is that they'll remember where they're set. As I throw this latch, the jaws underneath will close around your crossbar and they're going to have a nice tension to them. That tension can be adjusted with the gray dial here. And once we set the tension for our crossbar, it will stay there. So the initial setup is a little bit more work, but if we take it off and then put the box back on for another trip, it's as simple as dropping it down into the channels. We'll see the jaws pop out underneath the box and then throwing the latch around it to fully secure it. Those clamps have channels that they slide down into in the box that allow them to be moved back and forth and adapt to different crossbar spreads, anywhere from 24 inches apart all the way up to 39 inches apart. What that can also do is allow us to shift the box back and forth on our roof rack and get better clearance with things like our back hatch. Now this is going to vary depending on your vehicle, but it gives you a lot of room to move around, and in most cases you should be able to move it forward in a way that leaves clearance between the back of the box and the hatch when it's open. As for the construction of the box, it's going to be a black ABS plastic. So it's going to hold up well to maybe some slight impacts if you have any rocks flying at it. ABS plastic is pretty standard for any rooftop box. And with that, you're going to get a 110-pound weight capacity. So make sure you're not overloading it as far as the weight is concerned. Now with that, it is going to be a little bit less than where most roof racks are rated. I feel like 165 is pretty common for roof racks, but you do have to factor in the weight of the empty box itself, which is 37 pounds. Knowing that it's a lighter box, you should be able to max out the weight capacity on the box and still be within your roof rack's weight limit as well. Really the only thing left to consider with the box, if it meets all the functional needs, is maybe the aesthetics. Now it's not going to be super important to everyone. Some people are really just looking for the function of the box. But if you want it to look nice on top of your vehicle, you might consider some things like the finish and the overall shape. Now for me, the shape is mostly a functional thing. But if you look at the box up there, it's got this very square, boxy shape, which might not be for everyone. I think on the 4Runner here, it fits really well. But depending on your vehicle, you might look for something that's a little bit different just to match the shapes and contours of your own vehicle. As for the finish, it's going to be a matte finish. Again, that really just comes down to personal preference. The one functional difference I'd note between the matte finishes and the more glossy finishes is that the matte finish is going to stay looking new for longer. It's much more resistant to things like fingerprints and scratches than something like a glossy finish. But some people really prefer that glossy look because it matches the vehicle a lot better. Functionally, it's not going to change too many things between your different roof box choices, but it's just some things to consider when you're looking at one for yourself. And as for that install process, I know I've talked about it a little bit before with those Inno memory mounts, And with the box being pretty lightweight, it's super easy to get set up for the first time by yourself, even if the vehicle's a little bit taller. So let's check out that process now. Getting the box set up on the roof is pretty straightforward. It's a bit of a wide, awkward shape, but it's not super heavy. And even if you have a taller vehicle, I think it's going to be doable on your own. So just get that up to a good spot. Grab a second set of hands if you need them. Otherwise, just get it set on the crossbars and push it roughly into place. You can make a few more adjustments with it up there a bit later, but to get to the clamps on the inside, when it's straight out of the packaging, you've got your keys taped to the outside of the box, so we'll remove those, unlock the box, and get to the clamps on the inside. And once this is opened up, you can see we've got a couple of different boxes inside, all taped down and secured. This one is just for packing, and this one at the corner is the one that has all of our hardware. So get that out of the box and we can get our clamps out of there. With our clamps out of the box, we can open them up and drop them into the channels inside the box. I'm just gonna set them in there loosely for right now because we wanna make our adjustments first. Now, if they're not wide enough out of the box to fit around your crossbars, then you can just loosen them up with the hand knob at the end of it to open up those jaws a bit more. And again, we don't want to tighten these yet. I'm just going to put them all loosely in place in each channel, and we can move the box around on the roof to get it in its final position. With all the clamps loosely in place, now I'm going to worry about where the box is actually sitting on the roof. The reason I want the clamps in place is so that I don't shift it too far forward or back to the point where the clamp won't fit in the track once I move it. So now that I know it's all there, I'm going to actually start by opening up the back hatch and seeing if I have clearance with it at the back of the box here. And as we can see, we don't have any sort of contact being made. It's very close, but positioning wise, that's actually really good. I want it towards the back so it's not blocking the sunroof up front. And then I can go to the front of the vehicle to determine whether or not my side to side positioning is good. And overall, it's looking really nice. I'd say everything's running straight. If you needed to make anything adjustment-wise side to side, you could. But I think right here we're good to go and we can clamp it down. To fully tighten the clamps, you can come back to the same gray wheel that we used before to loosen them and turn it to the right to tighten them. Once we reach a certain point, I'm just going to test out the lever here. Ideally, whenever we're throwing the lever, we want to feel some tension, but not too much. Right here, I can't throw the lever any more than that, so I've got it too tight. Go back and forth until you find a good amount of tension on that lever. That will basically complete the tightening process on the clamps. And what we should feel is a nice snap of the lever closed to let us know that the clamps are engaged. Once we have that to the point we like it, here's that snap, letting us know that the clamp is tightened properly. Now from this point on, if we ever took the box off, we just have to open the lever, pull the clamp out, and it would remember the tension setting that we put on it. So reinstallation will be much quicker and easier than that first time setup. Once all the clamps are securely in place, I always like to pre-run my straps that come included with the kit. Those will just go through the loops on our clamps. And basically, your cargo will sit on top of it and the buckles will secure down over top the cargo. So I always like to get these set up beforehand. Feed the free end of the strap through the inner loop, then the outer one on your buckle. And then from here we can open up the buckle, throw one side over there, one side over here. Everything will get loaded up on top, and then we can secure it down over the top of our cargo. You do get the 2 straps included with your kit, one for each pair of clamps. And that'll do it for our look at the Inno Roof Box 320. I think it's a pretty solid option. For me, where I see it really standing out is the overall form factor. It's going to work really well if you're looking for something that's low profile. A lot of the rooftop boxes I've worked with, even if they say they're low profile, still stick up from the rooftop bars quite a bit. But with this one's unique shape, it's going to sit down probably lower than most other options out there. So if you're concerned about clearance in your garage, maybe you're going to be leaving the box on your vehicle full time and you don't want it to be sticking up too far, this is going to be a solid way to go. You do make some sacrifices as far as actually fitting it full of stuff. If you are carrying taller items, you just don't have as much room. But if that's not a concern for you and you want that low profile look, then this will be a solid option. That'll do it for our look at the rooftop box. Thanks for watching.